Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin. As always, before we jump into the show, I do have to plug our Patreon. I know I say it every single week, but it's how we keep the lights on. It's how we keep the podcast going. We literally couldn't do it without the people over at Patreon who do support us. So if you do get a moment, just pop over to Patreon/Nordic Mythology podcast and have a look at the different rewards and bonuses we get on there. Mainly, it's a bonus episode every single week that comes in the form of a Q&A that we do with our guests after the main show. And there's always a lot of extra bonus material in there, a lot of questions that me and Mags have missed. And they tend to be a lot lighthearted, a lot more lighthearted. I think the guests let their hair down after the main show. And obviously, if you can't support us on there, just a 5-star rated positive review wherever you get your podcasts. And like and subscribe on YouTube. A lot of guests bring visual aids these days, so go and watch them on there. And we also stream live to YouTube at the minute as well. But let's get into today's show. This is one I've been wanting to do for quite a while, so I'm really glad that we got to do this. First, I have to introduce my lovely co-host and in-house archaeologist, Mags Havgar.
Hello, everyone.
Here we are. And then our first guest needs no introduction. He's been on here a few times. Every episode is always a lot of fun. And that is Josh Rood, who is a musician, ritual performer, and researcher specializing in Old Norse religion and the vocalist of Nexion. Josh, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Thank you. And then our second guest is Ariya Theprangsimankul. Theprangsimankul. And that
almost. It's Theprangsimankul.
Okay, Theprangsimankul.
Yes.
Wonderful. Ariya is an actor and performer from Bangkok, Thailand, a country rich in spiritual traditions and folk magic practices. She received a BFA in drama from Thammasat University and is currently pursuing an MA in medieval Icelandic studies at the University of Iceland. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'm so sorry for butchering your name. But
no, I'm so excited to be here because I always listening to your podcast and because I have to learn a lot.
Oh, maybe it's not the right place. I don't know. Maybe.
It is the right place.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, what a motivation to keep us going, Dan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Stuart said he can see me sweating from, yeah, I bet. I'm known for not being able to say people's names too well. So when I looked at yours, Ariya, I did have a little kind of internal panic, but we got there.
Yeah, you're doing good. No worry at all.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, this one's been one I've been wanting to do for a while, ever since I saw that Hailung went to Thailand, and I think they sold out in record time, was it?
Oh, yeah. Less than a minute, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow.
That's so fast.
Less than a minute?
So yeah, ever since I saw that and then saw, obviously I'm friends with Josh and saw that he went over and there was a lot of stuff going on. It just looked incredible. And I wanted to put something together like this where we could all just learn a little bit about it and learn from each other, which is important, I think.
Yes, even for me, it's like the Norse mythology in Thailand is still pretty new things. I think it started to become very popular during the pandemic because, like the nature of Thai people, we are very like spiritual people. Everywhere in the Thai culture is always linked with some sort of superstitious belief. Like if you walk in the Bangkok, you can always see the spirit house in every corner of the street. It's everywhere, and it's part of this kind of like mixed culture and spiritual beliefs. It's like even if you say you're Buddhism, but you kind of worship Hindu gods, Norse gods, Chinese gods, and all the gods that you want to worship. So during the pandemic, I think because Thai people kind of like so scared that they're gonna die from the COVID, and so to the point that they just seek out any deities or gods that can save them from that pandemic. So,
Kind of like better safe than sorry type of thing. It's just like
Yes.
everyone, just come here.
Yes. So people just going for like every sort of belief at that time, and it's so also the emergence of a popularity of the fortune tellers as an occupation, like serious occupation. There are so many famous fortune teller coming out from that pandemic time in Thailand. And also I think many people just know about these Norse mythology that like, oh, in the West, especially in Europe and in Scandinavia, they have like Odin, Freya, Thor as a gods that they worship too. So people kind of starting to approach that from that perspective, like, okay, this is the gods of European people. So beside that, we worship like the Southeast Asian gods already. Why not adopting another gods too? Yeah, that's the premise.
I like that. So, how did you two meet? Let's start there.
I went when Hailong went to. It's kind of a funny story, but when Hailong went to Bangkok, the organizers of the event first wanted. They asked Hailong if they would also perform a bloat, a ritual, and Hailong, and as my friends in Hailong told me, so I might have some details wrong, but they don't do private bloats like that. They will perform on a stage, they will do that, but they will not take it off the stage as well in that capacity. So they were asked, well, do you know anybody who can perform? And so I ended up my friend Celia, who is a Gidya, a priestess as well, the priestess. They're the in Norway, the Ausatru organization, the Gidya and Goda, the priests. She's one of them. So she and I got asked, because we're both friends with the members of Hailong, if we would come and perform a bloat. And Celia called me and asked me, do you want to go to Thailand next month to do a bloat? And I said, kind of a scam is this? What sort of lie? I didn't believe it, and then because it just seemed so out there, so weird, right? And then turned out it was true. But I remember asking, so I went on the internet and I was like, Hailong in Bangkok, I don't see any information about this show. So I messaged Maria Franz in Hailong and I was like, are you going? Are you playing in Bangkok? Her response was, apparently, but so even they weren't quite sure yet. But then, we ended up all going, and Hailong performed, and Celia and I performed a bloat, and it was this fantastic week. But Ariya you were the project manager of the stage of the performance, correct?
Yes, kind of almost run the whole event.
She ran the entire event. So, and then we met that way, and that was when I told her that she was the Thai version of me.
Wonderful.
So when I was in Thailand with Hailong, I was, as Chris so lovingly referred to me last week, a guru. And and they were performing, and Ariya was in charge of most of running the event, and so we met that way and became pretty good friends. And then on a next trip, I got asked to return a few more times, and on a later trip, I think Ariya, you were sort of in charge of you were like my agent for that trip.
Oh, wow.
So she was kind of in charge of making sure I didn't get lost or die. I was where I needed to be when I needed to be there.
It's a perk.
And stuff. Yeah, and then so yeah, we've just become friends since the first time we met on that trip, that first trip.
What do you think the reason was for the show selling out as quick as it was? Is it just because of the pandemic and this interest in kind of the Nordic mythology, this kind of Viking folk music, I guess?
I think for Thai people, maybe I could say that it's different from the scene in the West. At least most people that bought because they're curious and they see that, okay, this is a ritual. This is part of a ritual, and they're curious to see about the folk tradition of Nordic people, how it's going to be. And with this group of community that they kind of hosting it, almost as if like a crowdfunding from a community itself that trying to bring Heilung to perform. So by that, I think that's part of why it's sold out so fast, because they need to be certain that, okay, we're going to make it happen. So we need to secure enough like ticket sales and costs and everything to bring them. That I think that's part of why it's sold out so fast, because just within the community, they know what they're going to get already.
Right. So if I could sort of add a little bit of a context from my understanding when going there in Thailand is, we can talk a little bit more about this later, but to put what she's saying in a particular context, there are sort of communities within Thailand that we would almost associate with, like, it's almost the Thai equivalent of our neo-pagan communities. So and so there was a community that's very interested in, among many other things, Old Norse religion, and they organized it. And so it wasn't like a music promoter sending it out into the ether of Bangkok. It was a community with already several hundred people that sort of kind of, as Ariya said, sort of backed it. So they kind of had an idea, it was sort of like hosted by a community, at least established that way. So that's kind of how there was a bigger, or at least there was already some interest already there, because there was already a lot of people invested in it, to bring this strange Nordic group from so far away that looks so exotic to Thai people into the heart of Bangkok.
Yeah. Do you have anything similar in Thailand to what Highland do, I guess, around the Thai culture? Is there that kind of comparison?
No, I think nothing similar to Heilung at all. Like I asked some friends that never, like they rarely listening to similar genre of music like Heilung, and they said during the concert they scared but they impressed at the same time. That's the impression.
Well, that's what I was just wondering, that different cultures see rituals very differently. Yes. And I think that obviously in Europe and the Western world, we're probably a lot more removed. The average person is probably a lot more removed from that kind of spiritual side, that ritual side. So when they go, it is very much like a show. Even though Highland, they say it's our ritual, it means a lot to them, but to a lot of the people watching it, probably is very much a performance. Whereas I think in a culture that still has that close link to those things, it could probably be seen quite differently than maybe over this side of the world.
Yes, very, very different, because for Thai people, when mentioned ritual, they will have a very clear what's going to happen in their mind, at least like in terms of like the ritual as they perform in Buddhism or Prime or mix between like Buddhism and Hindu. They know what the step it takes is going to be so sacred that everyone has to listen to the ritual leader, what's going to be, and they have a procedure of pray for the gods to to kind of like cleansing the space first, have some offering, and it's gonna be very peaceful, very sacred, and everything gonna be in a very beautiful way to like according to Thai tradition, everything has to be like very beautiful and elegant. And with Hailung is obviously another world, and and this I can say this is like a culture shock for Thai people to see, but I think it's in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Did you think that? Because I guess, like I said, it is so different that I'm trying to put myself in that. I guess it's the equivalent to probably me going to what you were just explaining about that very beautiful kind of. I probably feel very intimidated by that because it's very different for me. But then I'd love it. I'd really love to kind of be in that space, and I think it's lovely that this all gets.
Yeah, because even the way to sing or to do a chant in Thai ritual usually is to be in a very sweet, soft way for the chant. Why is like even with Josh when he performed the ritual is different. It's powerful, but the approach of this powerful spiritual aspect is so different.
Mm-hmm. So Josh, when you performed your ritual, what did that look like versus obviously like Hailung's ritual? And again, I guess how those two contrasts must have been different for the people of Thailand to see.
I think from a Thai perspective, and Ariya could actually correct me if I'm wrong. I think from a Thai perspective, what Hailung does and what I was doing are more closely related to each other than anything that they're used to in Thailand.
Okay.
Because we're using the same sorts of imagery, and many of the actions are similar or the same because we're both drawing from Old Norse religion and Old Norse traditions. Also, my rituals, I use a lot of chanting, and I chant in throat singing and very deep gravelly voice, which is alien to Thai people, but of course you get it with Hailung. So they sort of associate. I think they see those as very similar. But my ritual, the bloat, was much more intimate. Hailung performed in a big arena. It was not an arena, but it was a venue, a very big venue with seating in inside of a giant shopping center in the heart of the city. And my performance was out in the countryside. There was limited guests. Only a certain number of people were allowed to come to mine. I didn't choose that. This was all set up for me. The organizers, I think it was 1,000 people attended Hailung, I believe, Ariya?
Yes.
Yep. And 300 people attended the bloat that Celia and I ran. 300 people is still quite a lot for a bloat, because I'm not on a stage. We don't have microphones. But it was, I could describe it to a degree, but in a nutshell, it was very different because it was much more intimate, and it was not in any way a performance. Like even if Thai people understand what Hailung is doing even if they see it as a ritual, they still also saw it as a performance because they were dancing and stuff to it. It was a concert. It just might have been a sacred concert to them. My ritual, people were praying, they were bowing, their hands were to their heads, they were giving offerings. It was more intimate, is in a nutshell. I'll put it that way. We can talk about it more if you want.
Would those be people who directly believed in like the Nordic myths and the Norse pantheon, or is it a sign of respect for this happening?
I felt that okay, so I guess I'll go over it a little bit and describe a little bit of what we did. We set up the ritual, and they really, there was a team of people that were sort of designated. They were sort of there to make sure that what I needed for the ritual I got, and they set up the space the way that I wanted them to set up. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool having people do your bidding. So hence I became a guru. No, but well, because I'm organizing this big event, but I'm doing it from overseas. So I'm telling them I need a big fireplace, I need a big altar, I need a rope to put around a space that's X big that 300 people can fit around. I need these bowls. I need all this kinds of stuff. I need when I do bloat for large groups of people, I always provide, people are free to bring offerings, but I always ensure that there are communal offerings there for everybody to have. And so I needed to get those organized, and those were these beautiful, Ariya, it was very Thai specific. Is there a name for the types of flower?
A garland?
The garland, these beautiful flower garlands that were red, because in Thai, this is also a cool thing. In Thai culture, they still give offerings to many, many shrines throughout the city, which I'll talk about later. But I noticed, I'll talk about that later. I'm going to get back to that later.
Side quest.
We made these flower garlands that everybody had, and people gave these offerings. And I went through the steps of the type of bloat that I do, which is a bit different than I think a lot of people that are involved in most Alsashoot groups are familiar with. But there's a lot of chanting and a lot of singing and offerings, and there's a lot of steps. And I was doing it, and but beforehand they were setting up the altar, and they were just loading it with eggs and bread and all of these, and making the altar was absolutely beautiful and full of offerings. And I had told them to bring all kinds of stuff, but I had not asked them to put a whole bunch of offerings on the altar. And so I was asking them, like, of course it made sense. It made sense to me that they would do it, but I was surprised that they were doing it unprompted. It showed me that they had some level of understanding of what a bloat is without me ever explaining it to them. They knew that it was us going to these deities or these spirits and giving offerings, and they were doing it unprompted. They had an inherent understanding. And I thought that was incredible. And then as I'm doing the ceremony, towards the end, I'm looking out, I'm doing this prayer, and I look out, and I choked up because you see a ring of 300 people, and they're bowing, or their hands are out like this to, like, it's like a thing that Thai people do. But it's clearly a sign of absolute respect and absolute belief in what we're doing, in what we're doing, which is something I had not. I've done bloats for 20 years for groups of people in different countries in the West, and I've never seen such devotion, such that is so real for people until this. And but
just to ask a quick question on the back of that, do you think that's because as a country and as a culture they're just closer to that spirituality?
I have because I'm actually getting to your original question, which was
don't worry, we're known for that around here. You already know that.
I'm gonna bring it into your question, which was, do you think that these people had an understanding of the Norse myths and believed in the Norse gods, or was this sort of like respect, for what it was? And what I got the sense of, and I've now talked to these people many times and gone back to do more rituals, is that they had an interest in the Norse myths, but they had very little actual understanding of the Norse myths themselves. But in Thai culture, as Ariya said, they are already dealing. I mean, Thailand has probably hundreds of gods, between traditional Thai folk culture, Hinduism, and then whatever Chinese deities may be worshipped here and there. And they live in a world where now they have Facebook, they have social media, they have the internet, and they look out and they see, oh, well, in Europe, they have Greek gods and Nordic gods, and they're already used to so many gods and giving respect to gods. And so, yes, this was a guy doing rituals to gods that they are vaguely familiar with, but that didn't reduce the power or the realness for them. Mm-hmm. And so it is something where their culture is, this is real. The power of deities is real. That there are spirits in the world is very real. It's unquestioned that there are more stories about that, but it's unquestioned that there are spirits in the world and deities and unseen forces that you negotiate with. And that was incredible, that inherent animism. They didn't really know the Norse myths very well in terms of the details of Norse myths, but they seemed to understand what bloat entails better than most Westerners, even though they'd never been in the bloat before.
Yeah, I may add to that a little bit, is at least from the context that I grew up, it feels like in Thai culture, it's always you have a faith first, like a faith in the gods and deities and anything sacred. Like in my house that I grew up, we have a spiritual room that is the biggest room in the house, and there is like many tables. The biggest one will be for a Buddha statues, and it's like in my house there is like hundreds of Buddha statues, and then the next table is for Hindu gods, and then there's a table for Chinese gods, and then there are many other tables for ancestor. That at least what I grew up, but somehow my parents sent me to study in Christian school at the primary school, and then after that sent me to Muslim school. So it's just this kind of diversity of religions and belief that makes the entire culture is somehow very normal, that we just adopt anything. It's like gods are good, any gods are good. If they can help us, they are good.
I find that such a wonderful perspective on being like inherently curious and accepting, and not necessarily disdainful or critical or skeptical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that this sort of synthesis that they have is something that you would find, and you do find in pagan traditions. I mean, this was part of the problem with Europe and how it was able to be converted, was that you have people who already have so many gods, and they're so used to interacting with other people who have many gods, and that's sort of the natural state of people until you have somebody that comes in and says, oh, no, there are rules and this is the only correctness and everybody else is absolutely wrong. And that's where you start to get problems. But if you remove that element, this is what humans, you see this in indigenous traditions and traditional sort of practices around the world, is that synchronicity, that openness and that curiosity. It's very refreshing. Yeah. But it's also like, this is also how the West probably would have ended up being if in an alternative history.
Well, I mean, not to be an asshole, but I don't know if I would have like put Christianity and other religions really down that hard, but I completely understand what you're saying.
I'll be the one who does it.
Okay, cool. Well, you and I can have a chat about that.
I think it's an odd. It's not an odd way to look at it, but it's a very different way.
It's different from what we're used to, right?
Yeah, I think that for the most part in the West, you pick your camp and you stick to it, and everyone else is wrong. It's not. Now, I like the idea that, and I guess I didn't even. I think I saw like a meme that popped this into my head, which is memes maybe sometimes have good, where maybe the idea of that the afterlife isn't that there's just one. It could maybe that it's all of them. It's everybody's like God or afterlife is there, and you just go to whichever one was yours or the one that you want to. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But I think growing up, probably because it's a Christian country, very much that there is one. That's it. Whether it's Christianity, Muslim, Judaism, it's your one is right and the rest are all wrong, and you kind of have to go to battlegrounds over it. So it's really beautiful to hear that it's a country that again, apologies for my ignorance. I'm not sure if there is a national religion in Thailand.
Yes, Buddhism.
Okay, but it seems as though there are tons of different religions, and they all appear to have respect from the others. And also, it seems like a lot of people, correct me if I'm wrong, pick and choose, or not pick and choose in a bad way, but pick and take little bits from each one that maybe they need at a certain time, or they want to worship a little bit from this because they resonate with this part from Christianity, but also this part from Norse paganism can be used, and so on and so forth.
I think at least for Thailand, it's such a nature of Thai, perhaps, that they are so compromising with everything. And by geography, too, Thailand is the center of Southeast Asia. So every cultures, every religious and belief just come into Thailand, and people just negotiate and just coexist. I think at least like from geography and the nature of like the region, it's like that, it's that way. But still, even if the national religion of the country is Buddhism, but from my observation, I think the core is still very strong in the tradition of animism. Like, for example, with the spirit house, that I'm so excited when I see Josh get excited to see that, because it's a spirit house in a Thai way that worship Hindu gods, but the offering that people usually give to is a red soda, and if you ask some people, they were not sure why it have to be a red soda, but
I was
people,
asking.
yeah,
I was being a complete anthropologist, and Ariya's trying to steal my thunder with the red soda.
Your red soda.
Yeah, so I absolutely love the spirit houses.
What is a spirit house?
And they make. I have been trying to. I want to get them over here because they make such a sense in a European pagan context as well. They're these beautiful little shrines. They're not always little; it can be quite big. But they're shrines that are set up for spirits to live in, whether it's a local ghosts or local land spirits, or some of them are also dedicated to actual gods.
Are these inside your
everywhere.
own house, or just are these outside like public spaces?
They're out there. I can. I don't know, man.
It's like okay, imagine your house and you have your own yard, and for this spirit house you have to go through some ritual of seeing which location is the best for the spirit house. And so for the spirit house, there will be one dedicated to Hindu gods. Pram, he will be like the kind of like overlook into your land, and then there you may have like smaller tiny house for the ancestor gods. It might not be your ancestor, but we call they are ancestor, like a grand, this like a tiny house for the grandpa, something like that. And it will be like a house for a more local spirit, and all of them will protect you and your house.
So yeah. Sorry.
I was just trying to get a better understanding of a spirit house. So are these private things that would be in and on your property,
I'll tell you
are they public spaces?
I could give you a couple cool examples of them to maybe put it, because first of all, they're everywhere. They are everywhere, and I can even give some pictures for you guys to put up. If you
please do.
Because I went on like Spirit House. I was collecting pictures of them like Pokemon. I think they're beautiful. They are absolutely beautiful. They often look like little stop churches. And they've got little idols in them and stuff like that. But sometimes they're sponsored by big public corporations. They're right on the yard in front of a giant hotel. Or I was watching. This was a really interesting experience. Siam, this gigantic shopping mall, larger than anything I've ever freaking seen before in the West. Thailand has big malls, but right outside this mall are a couple really big, not really big, but big in the context of spirit houses. These shrines set up right in front of the mall, and I'm assuming it's owned or sponsored by whoever owns that building, whatever company owns and put up that building. And shoppers are stopping at these spirit houses and praying and burning incense before they go in to go shopping. I watched a little old lady give offerings, and I watched some guy covered in dragon tattoos with a shaved head come up and light some offerings and pray before going inside. Everybody's doing it. It's just a part of, and you see them everywhere. You also see them on people's property. You see them inside of restaurants. I got in trouble. I didn't get in trouble, but so I'm going to throw Hailung under the bus here. Me and a couple guys in Hailung, we were out wandering through the streets at night trying to find just a place to, just like a bar, like a normal bar. And we ended up in a very,
I pulled some.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Just to quickly interject. So they're a lot smaller than I was expecting. So when you said
they're not always small, they can be quite big.
But they're not people sized, am I right?
Oh, well, there's a few shrines. I don't know if you call these spirit houses, but I saw some shrines dedicated to like Chinese hero that you could walk into, but that might be different.
Yeah, so this is going to sound maybe so offensive, but I'm trying to think of a way that I can put it in a context for people who don't know what these are. I guess they're kind of like big bird boxes, but like
big bird houses.
So really ornately decorated and obviously with a different purpose. But I'm just, for somebody who's never heard of one, that's the kind of thing that they seem like big.
And in front of them often is sort of an altar. And on that altar is incense that's burning, and often people will be burning it. And if it's in front of a hotel, then the hotel organizers are probably the ones lighting it every morning. And there's also these bottles of red soda all over the place. And I was like, what are the red sodas for? Why is everybody giving
What
red
is with the red sodas? What about the green sodas?
Yes, there's a very freaking cool reason, and I would like my Norse neo-pagan people who are listening to kind of think about this, because there's always this debate of Reconstructionism versus how do you adapt to the modernity and stuff like that. And I asked, was it you who I asked, Ariya? I asked somebody.
Yeah, probably.
Why is there red soda, huh? Yeah, same reason.
Yes. Because it's like the root from animism, and they offering blood to like the spirits, to the ancestor. But throughout the times, why would you give the blood that it will spoil under like 30 Celsius in the air and it's gonna smell bad? So they gradually change. Yeah, and then gradually they change. I think before this red soda, it was a red syrup, a sweet drink, but it's in red. Yeah. But after that, it's more convenient that you buy a soda from 7-Eleven and then give it to the gods.
Mm-hmm.
With a straw. With a straw.
Obviously.
They need to drink.
They're open.
Hello?
Yeah, it's like it will be terrible if you made an offering and then you close the lid. It's like even with a snack, when we offer it to the spirits and God, we have to open the bag for them.
Which red soda company had that as like the perfect marketing ploy? Was like, you don't need blood anymore. We have red soda for you, and you come and buy this.
Yeah, well, I feel like in America, I'm going to get in trouble for this. I feel like Mountain Dew is among a lot of certain types of Austro people in America, and Code Red. Code Red is a type of Mountain Dew that's red, and so they could start promoting it as give to Odin's favorite drink is Code Red.
Yeah.
No, but it's just very interesting that the red stayed as it's the symbolism. The symbolicness is in the red, that they don't give the blood anymore, but they give something it's red to represent that. But they are still giving something. It's very, very interesting. And so, yeah. So anyways, I was with a couple of people in Hailung trying to find a place to drink, and we ended up in a very shady part of of the city on accident, and I wanted to. I'm looking out and I just thought this was so funny. I needed to take a picture of it and I couldn't get a picture because I got in trouble. But there was a strip club, and next to the strip club was a Hooters, and in between the strip club and the Hooters was a shrine.
Okay.
A very decorated shrine covered in offerings, and I was like, "Oh my god! I gotta take a picture of the sacred."
That could be my shrine, I think.
The spirit that watches over the Hooters and the strip club. And some lady hit me with a pom pom, and she was like, "No pictures. I'm not allowed to take
Sacrilege.
pictures."
Hello. Show some respect, Josh.
I think she didn't want me. I think they don't want people taking pictures of like the strip clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so
that's
it's not a spirit house thing that you're.
I was trying to get a picture of the spirit house, but it was right next to. I think she thought I was trying to take a picture of a strip club. I didn't think too much about it.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't sure if it was maybe sometimes in religious spaces
none
you're
of
not
us went into the strip club. We were trying to find a nice bar to drink at and play
in Hooters.
We did. We did not go to Hooters either. We went right past, but it was just a very funny moment.
I wondered whether it was a case of that you're not meant to take pictures of the spirit houses.
Well, you can.
Because obviously
I took so many pictures of the spirit houses, and I even asked. I would take pictures and I would ask people who this is to, or if they could read a sign to me, because I was at a giant Jatojak market. It's a massive market. It might be the biggest in the world, open air market.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's a big shrine in the middle. And I was trying to read it, and somebody helped me to understand it. So you can take pictures of those. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
You just can't take pictures of strip clubs.
Fair enough.
They prioritize.
So who was the shrine in between the strip club and Hooters for? Did you find out?
I looked generic. It was probably to a local spirit, like a ghost, like a spirit that. This is why I say that, like, these. I really want to sort of get something like this here because it very much makes sense in a Nordic or in a Western pagan context as well. The idea that there are spirits in the land where you are on this little plot of they're right here where you're trying to build a house. There's still a spirit here, so you have to honor them and give them their own little house as well, if I understand the Thai perspective. So they're everywhere. That's why they're on every freaking corner, because there's spirits everywhere. The world is full of spirits. They need houses and they need to be respected, and these little monuments are there to constantly remind you of that.
I love that.
Me too. So even the strip club has the spirit.
Yeah, and for me, in my perspective, sometimes I see it like when you play a kind of like a Sim City. It's like, okay, this area belongs to this god, and this area belongs to this god of this owner. And sometimes it's like, for example, the district with a mega malls in center of Bangkok. I've often heard the story about each mall. They will just have like their main deities that they worship. Like, for example, one mall has Lakshmi, another mall has Prime, another mall has Ganesha, and they will make the statue of this god to be as huge as possible, but without consult with like a feng shui master or a people who seriously practice the folk tradition to see like the best day to consecrate the land, to build this spirit house and the best location, because it's like they kind of like trying to imagine that you put like a laser machine to point at another mall. So it's like, okay, I'm beating this god, so customer will come to my mall more than you. And then it's like another mall kind of have their own tactic. Okay, then I will just raise this god to have more power than your god to help protect my mall and bring more customer than you.
So is it like a capitalistic god competition?
yes, in a sense, yes. And almost every business in Thailand very serious about this, because such a strong belief in this, even with like a billion billion-dollar company or something like that still very serious about this in Thailand, about the location, about the gods that they have to kind of like worship and make offering.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have are there any Nordic gods in that?
They not yet. Yeah, it's like Hindu gods still monopolize everything in Thailand now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm trying.
Yeah, just a huge Thor statue of like come to our shop or else.
So we'll see one day, maybe. Give me a few years.
I love those spirit houses, and I imagine it's one of those things that, you know, if we did manage to kind of get that happening in the West, once the ball starts rolling, I think people would really love it, and that
I do too.
That kind of seeing that day to day almost brings that spirituality back as well. Because at the minute we don't see it, we're not aware of it unless we have conversations like this, and it's kind of brought to us. But if it's there and you see it every day, it's that kind of little reminder of like, we are spiritual, we are, you know, people, we need the land.
Well, we can be if we want to be. Yeah.
You do see. I mean, it's nothing like in Thailand, and it's not even, the whole perspective has completely shifted. But I you know, there are monuments kind of to the land and to the spirits of the land and to the pagan past here and there throughout Europe, if you know where to look. Or often, you know, I remember I read an article once that I thought was really interesting, that was pretty cool, that was saying, you know, pagans, those who are interested in paganism, there are monuments all over dedicated to pagan deities. You just have to, like, they weren't necessarily erected to be a monument to a pagan deity. For example, in Copenhagen, there's a big water fountain dedicated, I think, to Geth. I think, but yeah. So I mean, there are monuments to Nordic gods and to gods around the world, but people don't. There's sort of just, it's a statue. But if you shift your perspective to see it not as a statue but as a shrine, which, by the way, Ariya could tell you, there are Thai people who come to Europe and do see those water fountains and statues as shrines. And give them offerings and stuff.
Yes, like in Copenhagen with Gafyun statue and also the mermaid. There are Thai people that go there and worship and make offering. And by offering for Thai people, it's not just that you just gave for nothing. But sometimes they make a deal. For example, it's like they will pray and it's like, if I could make a deal, for example, like 1 million baht by the end of this month, I would just give this to you. And if it happened from that deal, they would just come back again and make the offering as they promised.
Yeah, they're very negotiative.
Yes.
Is that something that's just built into Thai culture, that no matter where you go, if you come across something like that, then an offering is given? Is it an offering from, I guess, from like a selfish perspective, whereas in like, not in like a bad way, but like, I'm going to give an offering because I then want something back from this statue? Or is it more of a selfless thing where it's, well, we're in a different culture, in a different country, we're going to give an offering to this just because it's the respectful thing to do?
I think it could be both way, depends on the person. Like I saw a recent story from probably last month. I shared with Josh too. Like some Thai people, they went to France and then they offering something for the statue of Louis.
Yeah.
Which Louis, I forget the number, but in front of Versailles probably, and then negotiate the deal with Louis that like, okay, if I kind of like got the deal out of this job, I would just come back and then offer you a lot of like bakery goods, something like that.
I love that.
Then yeah. And she got the deal and then it's like, wow, Louis is the real deal. And then she went back. And then more Thai people interested in doing the same thing, but it's like they would just not leave the offering there. They would just, okay, I will give this offering to you. I will leave it there for a few minutes for you to eat and finish, and after that I would take it back.
I think that it's very hard to talk about all Thai people because everybody is different. But if you set yourself in a society where spiritual powers, spiritual beings, unseen entities inhabit the world, then you negotiate with them, and you might do it, and some people might do it out of pure respect, and other people might do it because they hope to win the lottery, or because they hope to. I mean, this is human. People do this. Christians do this. People do this in all religions, where they pray to try and cause the powers to get them their way. But then
I wonder how many
people who are very that aren't like that, who are very just what's the word? Just dedicated,
altruistic, like just serving the greater good, kind of.
Yeah. So it's more like you take humans, you put them here, you take the idea that there are spirits and that there are unseen powers, and that this is a very real fact, and they inhabit the world, and people are gonna have all kinds of relationships with those spirits.
Yeah, I guess
so unsavory.
I wonder how many people suddenly find, you see it, like pray when they become ill or when there is a disaster.
Exactly.
Like that's a huge part of being able to deal with things.
Yep.
Is and that kind of having some sort of hope. And I guess, Ari, you even mentioned that earlier with the pandemic, that a lot of people in Thailand were looking at other regions of just trying to see what might help.
Yes, like I remember that many people even look after for a yantra, like a paper with a scripture, like whether it's from Chinese tradition, Thai tradition, or whatever. People just want to have these to put in their house to protect themselves from the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like this level, but still, it's not that they entirely out of the conscious of like scientific realization, but they still like stock the toilet papers and use a mask, but they still have this aspect like extra protection.
Yeah.
Thailand is simultaneously very modern, and I don't like the idea that animism or the belief and the negotiation with spirits and stuff is somehow not modern or behind the times, because that's just not true per se. But Thailand is simultaneously very modern, very technological, very capitalist, and also very. It's not even about belief. It's not even a question of belief. It's just a matter of their existence. Their being in the world is alongside the unseen. That there are spirits living in the world alongside them. It's not a question of belief. It's a question of that's how they experience the world.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, do you think there will be a shift, maybe as it becomes more capitalist, or have you seen a shift in your lifetime where, I guess, I don't know, I'm not too sure. I guess we kind of lost it because Christianity took over, and we had like one that kind of pushed everything else down. So I don't know if it will happen in Thailand.
No, because there's Buddhism, and that's what's really interesting about Buddhism. That I don't. I'm an anthropologist and I'm an expert on Old Norse religion, but I don't understand that much. I don't understand much about why it is about Buddhism, what it is about Buddhism that allows many gods to exist underneath it, within it. Ariya, didn't you once tell me that Thai people are bad Buddhists because because you have so many gods? Because technically in Buddhism, I don't think you are supposed to have lots of gods, but Thai people do. You're not supposed to pray to gods, but Thai people do.
I think it's the syncretism in Thai culture is not is unlike that Buddhism came first and etc. But because the root is of course, I think in most cultures always started with animism, and then at least for the history of in Thailand, it came the Hinduism, and after a while Hinduism took root, and then it's Buddhism mix. But still, because at least in the area of Thailand, it's such a big geography, so there's still, even like if you go to the northern part of Thailand, they still practice the folk belief strongly. Like they have their own set of custom and belief, and some local people there, they might say that Buddhism kind of corrupt their old belief in a way. But from my understanding, it's still not in a way in the same that Christianity eradicate like the old Norse belief entirely and change the law. Is not exactly in that. It's still very much compromised. It still exists, but some aspect lost because the influence from the belief in Buddhism, like for example, the perspective of Buddhism might say that these local spirits is not sacred; they are a demon, for example. But they are not entirely say that you should stop worshiping that, but they would just say like, okay, this is inappropriate because you worship a demon. That's all. And
in Europe, you get burned at the stake.
Okay, let's get our timelines in order here, because the burning of the stake stuff happened like 500 years after.
but the Nordic gods, we'll take for example, as the Celtic gods as well, they were first said they couldn't say they don't exist. So what they said was they're demons. And then you are prohibited from worshiping them. You are prohibited from giving sacrifice. You're prohibited from giving bloat. And then they put in strong laws that will get you outlawed for that. And then you would be executed for it at certain points in the early medieval period. And then at a certain point, it's pushed underfoot so hard that it dies out, and now you have a Christian society. And I feel like under Buddhism, because of whatever it is about Buddhism that doesn't have that like that sort of, I don't know, that drive to eradicate the other gods, they just sort of it sort of simultaneously, as Ariya said, it has changed the local traditions in ways that like very conservative or people who are very into the traditional ways might not approve of. However, it also in a weird way protects and preserves them from, for example, Islam and Christianity, which are the types of religions that will sort of push out the local, the traditional deities.
In my opinion, I think it might have something to do with the politics, like with the Christian king at that time during the Viking Age. Is like because they try to convert, but I think in Thailand they are not trying that hard to convert the entire country to become a Buddhism, even if the monarch practiced a mix between Hinduism and Buddhism. But it's too hard probably to change the entire region into Buddhism and practice that, because it's still they can trade. I think that's the important part, that they can still trade with neighbor country. But in Europe, at least, they have to become a Christian so they can trade.
Okay. Not Christian, they're not allowed to trade. So
okay, so it's kind of the other way around.
If you're a tiny little rock like Iceland and you're not allowed to trade.
Yeah, I mean the whole world. The way the world's going, none of us are allowed to trade at the minute, are we? It's all going a bit. All right, one thing I wanted to ask you earlier was: do you think there was any like negative opinions towards like the Heilung concept? Is there like a subgroup of people that would be, this is something we don't understand, this is very kind of different and weird, it's kind of almost like demonic? I guess for anybody that doesn't understand it, you look at a Heilung ritual and it could be perceived as I mean, I've seen plenty of Christians online saying that these rituals are demonic. So can that be, or do you think it would have been perceived by some as quite a negative thing to have this going on?
I think it's rather positive than negative, because even not from the people that have interested in the spirituality, there are also like a metalhead, a metal fan, like a Heilung fan outside of like the spiritual community, and even people that just randomly saw the review and have some interest about Heilung, like, oh, what is this? Very interesting. So it feels like it's very much positive. rather than it's like, oh, this looks scary, but it's more of a curiosity. It's like, oh, who they are, what is this, and they are from Europe. Oh, it's exotic. It's more in that sense.
Yeah, I like that because I feel like if it was the other way around, there'd be like
Yes.
a big group of people that'd be like, did you on our side? They'd just be like, oh no, it's different, it's weird. We don't it's scary.
Yeah, I think for some people, of course, they can look scary from the style, the painting, everything looks so dark. But at the same time, I think there are people who appreciate this style too. I think in a way, because in Asia, we have a people who appreciate anything European, like, oh, the castle, something with the bones. And, it's kind of very cultural inappropriate approach into anything Viking related in Thailand to the point that you're gonna do a face palm when you see people trying to dress up like Viking into their understanding of what is Viking.
That was interesting to see. The face palm was heavy, but it was also very interesting to it was of course you're not. What was very interesting to see people from so far away with so little access to information about Old Norse religion or quote Vikings and their impression of it when because you got people dressing up and
oh, okay.
That, and
how many horned helmets did you see?
None, but
well, that's good. Like, no horned helmets. Yes,
that's true. But there was elf ears, and I can be honest, it wasn't much worse than what you'd see at Midgard's Blut.
Yeah.
Some, they're so far away. I mean, I'm sure that you don't know what you don't know, and you're looking at a culture from far away. And to be fair, the West has not done a very good job of presenting Vikings and Nordic stuff from a very historically accurate perspective.
No, what?
Yeah, they can't blame Thai people for seeing Vikings and sort of absorbing the cartoonish aspects, except they didn't have horned helmets.
Believe me.
Part right, I think. Were there any horned helmets, Ariya?
No, I don't remember.
Amazing.
Believe me, if I got sent to a traditional Thai ritual and told to dress up, I'm getting cancelled.
I would not know what to wear.
I promise you,
I would do it, and it was awesome.
I'd do it with all the love in the world, but if I had if I just had to go with it, and there's you just have to dress up, go with what you think is right, I'm not making out of that. I'm getting something completely wrong.
You're fucking dressed like a samurai and everything.
Yeah, I'm just like.
But for me, I would love to see in terms of it's more about cultural appreciation. It's like at least you try to understand, you try to open yourself. It's like you're aware that you don't know, but you're trying something. Yeah. It's not just that you're taking it for granted or because you're just being an ignorance or something like that.
Yeah, it's like they're doing it. You see people dressed not historically accurate, and from the West. If you saw people doing that in the West, you would face palm, but it's the other side of the planet, and what you see from them does come across as they're just trying to show respect. They're dressing in the way that they think is a way of showing you appreciation for how they think, in the way that they think that you want to. They're just trying to show you appreciation, and that's very sweet.
Yeah, I love that. Mags, is there anything you want to add?
Not at the moment, no, because it's been quite a lot.
I know. I was trying to think what we save for. Cause I saw a couple of good questions in the chat, save for the Q&A. And I was I was wondering whether to save how you got into all of this, Ariya, for the Q&A as well.
Well, we could do an intro question now, and then maybe we could have a conversation that expands upon it in the Q&A. Because I think that's, worth for the open episode for people to know, how you got into this, Ariya. Sorry, I stole your question, Dan. My bad.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can go with that. Ariya, how did you end up? I guess, were you interested in this? I guess you must have had an interest in it prior to Highland going, but were you always going to go to the University of Iceland kind of before that, or did that kind of spark things and then you took that interest?
For me, it's quite a very a huge sudden change in my life to come to study this in Iceland.
Oh,
because
the Vikings will do that to you. I think a lot of people. Max, you had it happen to you, didn't you?
Yep. I'm a part of this club, except that I stayed where I was born. But the Vikings will just come and grab you by something, and just suddenly you end up in places where you didn't expect to be.
Yeah,
I was a plumber, and then I ended up here. Josh, I think, did you have a similar thing, or were you always interested in it?
Since I've been obsessed with this shit since I was a...
Josh is just like, what is up with you fakers? I've been here the whole time.
You're born for this.
Poses.
I was born into it.
This is my life's mission.
Sorry, Ari, please carry on.
I had reasons for why I got into it, but that's a different story.
But for me, I think it's like I started as a hobby, a very casual, because there was a year that I still doing a theater back in the day, and I just came across like the Wicca book, and I was very curious, and randomly they have a section that talk about runes, inscription, and some part about like where rune came from, the Nordic regions, etc. And then I, with curiosity, because in Thailand, I just grew up knowing about like Thailand have folk magic traditions, and in Asia is very, very common to have this. And then I just curious, like, oh, then what about in Europe? Do they have a magic, some tradition, something like that? So at that time, I was such a naive. I think it's like, oh, if we have this in this side of the world, then another side of the world might have the same thing. So I tried to look for that, and to the point, it's like, oh my gosh, the cultural barrier is so thick for me to understand. And after I tried to do my own studies and research, and it's still very hard, and especially during the pandemic, because at that time my career changed again from theater, and I becomes a full-time job into the game company, something like that, and so I get more time to do this, and I met some group of people and got some sponsor and got some encouragement to apply for University of Iceland. So it's kind of like this long journey from just questions, starting from like, what do they do in Europe in terms of like magic tradition, is starting from my silly thought that, okay, they might have the same thing. By the same thing, I mean, for example, in Thailand, we have some certain ritual tradition that, at least according to scholar, they said it continues since the medieval era. For example, with Nora Rongkru tradition, is now becomes like a UNESCO intangible heritage. It has some roots probably since a year 1500.
Oh wow,
something like that, and still continue to do so. So from my naive brain, I thought in Europe must have the same thing too, especially like the pre-Christian religion.
The Nora, just to put it, to explain, let my Western voice help you other Westerners understand. But she was talking about how she would see like Nora they're essentially a type of shaman, dancing shamanism, and it's quite pagan. I have to be a guest of a Nora ritual that was very similar to how I would imagine a Norse ritual, an old Norse bloat, if it was in somebody's house, would be. But that's been going on. That's a modern thing in Thailand. It's now protected under UNESCO. So she was, if I understand you correctly, what you were trying to say, Ariya, was that like in Thailand they have all these contemporary pagan traditions that have been going on for so long, and you wanted to see how it was in Europe, and then you realized how Christianity is.
Yes, thank you for translating for me. I cannot articulate like properly.
But I got what you were saying, Ariya, and I don't think.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, and I don't think that was a naive thought to have at all, because it's about using your own cultural understanding from where you are from to understand other cultures in other places of the world. And I think that is a very healthy way to come from to then use that understanding to alter your perception based on what you learn. So I just wanted to say, like, just like, since you phrased it as you being like a naive outset for you, I don't think it was naive at all. I think it was very, very thought through and very like well articulated way of trying to interpret and being curious about it.
It gets very difficult when you're in Thailand, though. For example, like from my perspective, as when I'm there and I'm teaching them, because I've gone over a few times now to teach about runes, to teach about Old Norse religion, and to teach about how to do ceremonies and stuff like that. And people are obviously so curious about the Norse gods in Scandinavia, and they do not seem to realize, many of them don't seem to realize that the Norse gods, they are not contemporary. They were around. We are a revival movement, and trying to explain that is very difficult because they don't have that. When they, like Ariya said earlier, they think of Europe and they go, oh yeah, the Norse gods and the Greek gods, and they're there. They don't realize that they are kind of there in our cultural memory, but they're not there as an active part of society anymore. And those of us who are doing it are trying to bring it back. So,
but also, I guess the information that we would have about Norse gods our information about those gods is severely limited, I suppose, compared to what it would be in Thailand based on all the other different gods. Yeah, that we like they're being revived based on fairly few available still conserved pieces of evidence.
I guess that's because we had that break, though. It's not a
but I also think that goes into cultural memory, like you said earlier, Ariya, about like intangible cultural heritage, that there was the way that this stuff was known and remembered was through what we would define as intangible. So that's why we lost the memory of it in many, many cases, because it wasn't recorded in a way that would survive people not being a part of that tradition.
Yes. And for me, it's like, even when I try to study this subject myself about Old Norse religion when I was in Thailand before I met Josh, it's so hard for me to wrap my head around, because to understand the Old Norse religion, just even for the concept of like to read the poetic Eddas by itself, you have to understand the context of the European history, especially in Scandinavia, and how it's connected, and everything it's so hard for me to wrap my head around. And when I was just in Asia, even if I went to like Japan or any other country, but we still in the sphere of something similar in terms of we have this long heritage of oral traditions. But then I met Josh and I asked him a lot of questions at that time because of curiosity. But there are so many things that I cannot fully understand. It's like it's like when you understand something from the perspective of like, oh, you got explanation, but you don't feel deep inside that you understand it. For me, it's like that until I get to come to Iceland and then experience and see another aspect and issue. And especially at least my time in Iceland is the first time that I'm in such a Christian country. At least that's a Christian country for me.
Because Iceland is so not Christian.
I know, but I still see it's in like, at least it's in the language, it's in the culture. Even if people say that they are not Christian or they atheist, but I still see it rooted deep in the culture in that aspect, and it kind of like gradually helped me a lot into understanding these much more, to the point that I feel like if I don't get to come to Iceland, I will be struggling so hard still to understand.
I think that's such an eloquent way of explaining it, that even just to read the sources and stuff, like you almost need a crash course in context to be able to. And I think that is the case for so many different things. Like we
take it for granted.
Yeah, and like this example being Norse mythology. But I think that's such a good point, that like you can't just take the sources or concept by themselves because they're steeped in a context and a time period that without which you're kind of lost if you don't have knowledge of that as well.
Yep.
Yes, and for me to be able to understand it, I just love to feel things because I'm not sure if this because of my theater background or something, but a layer of understanding is like it's not just you explain like, okay, Odin is the Allfather and done, but for me it's like, what kind of Allfather is that?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Why is he Allfather? Yes. Yes, and what is the relationship between him and the people who worship him? What is the cultural context? What is the social context?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So fascinating. I have so many questions that I'm saving for the Q&A that just keep popping up in my head. Because this is an hour and 20. Obviously, we had a little bit of a hiccup, so we're well over an hour. So let's wrap this up. My last question is though, Ariya, did you check the weather before moving to Iceland?
I warned her so hard.
That has to be a culture shock in and of itself.
Oh yes, and I came here in the summer, and so many people, even Maria told me to. She gave me a great advice that I don't understand at that time. She kept telling me to wear layers, and for me is what is layers? For me, it's like because in Thailand, you just t-shirt and shorts. That's fine.
Honestly, that was the same for me when I moved back to Norway after having grown up in Florida and Spain. I also I spent 2 years re-understanding the concept of layers. I feel you.
Yes, what is
that?
layer? Yes.
Ariya knew what the word layers meant, but she didn't feel it.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah, perfect. All right, let's wrap this up. So yeah, because I want to get to. I'm really interested to see if there's anything that you feel from your now reading and learning about like Nordic studies, if there's anything that you think gives you a unique perspective on from like coming from that Thai culture. And then I also want to find out if there's any you can see any similarities between the two. So to just have a think on those two, because I'd like to ask those in the Q&A amongst other people asking their questions. So if you want to hear the Q&A and you are just watching on YouTube, pop over to our Patreon. It's Patreon/Nordic Mythology Podcast, and then you get access to the Q&A. It's not only live, you can listen to it after the fact, and you get to listen to everyone we've ever made as well. It starts from £3 a month, and you get the whole back catalogue. There's hundreds at this point of like bonus episodes in there. But yeah, Mags, where can people find you?
When I am active and do post stuff once in a blue moon on the big ol' internet, you can find me on Instagram at ArcheoMags, Archeo with a K.
Perfect. Thank you both for joining. Josh, you have a new single out with Nexion. You're making a bunch of new music. Where can people go and hear that?
You can, if you're into my music, Nexion, you just go to Nexion. You just search us on Google, I guess. Nexion. We have a Facebook and Instagram. We released a single, Gandur.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very good.
Thanks. Yeah. I think just today there was an article with an interview with me released today. I don't think we've published it. Oh, we did publish it. We advertised it. But yeah, we've got a lot of big exciting announcements coming up because this summer and autumn is going to be a lot of new stuff. So that's exciting.
Fun.
Yeah, I know you wanted to get to speaking to about Nexion a bit in today's episode, but this is such a fascinating topic that we kind of run out of time. But we
haven't yet really talked that much about the whole Thailand thing. It's
let's, because we'll get into that in the Q&A. I feel like we'll do a little bit of time there. But Josh, we'll book you in just to talk about Nexion as an episode, and in itself, because obviously there's a lot of links between your music and what you do as like a job and a career, and this all stuff ties together.
Yeah, there is, especially the new album. The new album is all it's very heavily Nordic and land connectedness and stuff like that.
Yeah. So rather than trying to just pin like 10 minutes on the back end of this, of just kind of talk about it, let's do an episode on that. And
gotta
I
wait
think
till the new album's out yet, though. Gotta wait for the new album, and then we can, because then I can't talk until things are out, you know.
Okay, yeah. Well, so when that comes out, we'll book it in, and we'll do an episode on that and all the ties, and we can really get into it. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Josh, do you have a public profile? Because I know you do, obviously, your education side.
Yeah, I've got Eagle on the Ash, but I'm bad at promoting it, so I don't even know what you could search on Instagram or Facebook. I'm sure you guys will link it.
Yeah,
Eagle on the Ash.
That's it.
Yeah, on Instagram and Facebook.
Ariya, do you have anywhere where you would like people to check you out?
I have my Instagram, Ariya THP. So at least you can save the time from typing my last name. Yeah, just THP, Ariya THP. And also I would like to say this now, because I'm working as part of like the organizing team for the Hauskole Island Student Conference on the Medieval North. You can search these on Facebook and Instagram, and we are currently need some support on the funding.
Fun. What was that? What could we search again? What was the name of the conference?
The Hauskole Island Student Conference on the Medieval North.
Okay.
Yes, we have that every year. Is a student volunteer organizing. We are trying to provide all the scholars, the students, to come and have like these academic activities in Iceland.
And for those who don't know, Hauskole Island is University of Iceland. So,
yes.
Yeah. I saw somebody type that.
Great. Thanks for putting in the chat, Jen.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop it into our Facebook group and our Discord group, and I'll put it to our patrons as well, because I know you need a little bit of help. It's not you don't need tons of help financially, but I think that we can, between us, a part of the podcast, I'd be very proud if we could get you over the line. So that would be nice if we could sort that out for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I could.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, we'll get that sorted one way or another. For me, it's Daniel_Farrand1 if you want to follow me personally. Horns of Odin for the business, and then it's Nordic Mythology Podcast across the board. Like I say, the best way to support us is Patreon/Nordic Mythology Podcast, or just YouTube, subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. That's it. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.